Hello and welcome to the Christopher Hall Training Podcast. Today's topic is, why is low back science so confusing? Why does it contradict itself? Why are all us professionals out there saying completely different things and saying that I'm right, you're wrong, or you're right and so-and-so's wrong, or whatever? With that topic, we have to understand science and how it works. If you have any questions about anything that I'm going to talk about, this isn't, normally I would prepare and I would have notes for what I'm going to say and the direction I'm going to take it and things like that. I haven't got any notes because it was, this is based on a question that I've just been asked. It says here 25 minutes ago on YouTube, but I think it's a very important question. And it's something that the general public, and I'm going to say a lot of health and fitness trainers, are stuck in. That is the perceived minefield of science, because it seems to be so contradictory. I don't believe it's contradictory. I don't believe it's a minefield. I believe there's lots of information out there, but it's all either being taken out of context or misunderstood. And then it gives the perception of a minefield. I think low back science is very simple. But again, we have to understand what science is with that. So as I mentioned, if you have any questions about this, leave them in the comment section below. You're allowed to disagree, that's fine. But I will question your disagreement to see how well it's, how nuanced you are with that disagreement, and if you understand the context in which you're saying what you're saying. So if you do want to add a comment or a question like that, please be aware that I will question it to try and understand your understanding of it. So why is science so contradictory? Well, to start this off on a very broad sort of spectrum, I'm just going to talk about science as a whole. And I'm reading a book currently called Triumph Over Doubt. I've also read a book called Food Politics. And what these books do is they look at the political and corporate influences over advice, let's say. So in Food Politics, this is all about nutrition advice. And it basically goes through quite systematically about how big corporations go about influencing said advice from governments in what the corporate people want them to say or what they don't want them to say. Now, what this then starts to do, this then starts to filter out into professionals, because professionals have biases and they like certain information over other information. So they tend to select that and agree with it, and then they will tend to deselect other stuff that they disagree with. So what this basically means is the reason there is disagreement, the reason it seems like it's a minefield, the reason information isn't consistent is because someone is trying to sell something, be it a product, a service, or an idea. If that wasn't the case, there wouldn't be the minefield. But because people are trying to be unique, they're trying to get their biases across, they use science as a means of justifying what they want. Now, how can they do that if science is so objective? The easiest way to describe that is, if we come from the perspective of big corporations, they influence scientific results. So they employ scientists that are sympathetic to their thought process or their biases or their product. They set up journals and research associations that they're able to funnel money into with said researchers who go about doing the research that they want. They sometimes blatantly say, we need science that says this. So they then go and find the science that says that, and then they put it out there. There's more stuff in here. I'll just read out some of the chapter titles of food politics. So, influencing governments. So this is part 2, working the system. Influencing government, food lobbies and lobbyists. Co-opting nutrition professionals. So that's taking professionals and co-opting them. Winning friends and disarming critics. Playing hardball, legal or not. Exploiting, this is part 3, exploiting kids, corrupting schools. Starting early, underage consumers. So you can start to see that the industry has a way of influencing what people are told. Chapter I've just read in this book, it's called Working the Refs. And what working the refs means is basically working the critics, working the associations that dictate the rules, if that makes sense. So they get them on side, or they just influence what they say. So that is everywhere. So that's from a very big, broad scientific perspective. And that's one of the things they want to do is they want to create doubt and confusion. So that's what the tobacco industry did. That's in this book. That's what the food industry are doing. That's in this book. There is also the car industry, the mining industry. What other chapters are in here? Let me just get to the chapters book. Forever Chemicals, DuPont, the NFL doctors and concussion, spirited denial, that's alcohol, opioids, so the opioid crisis in the USA. Again, all of this was influenced by industry because they wanted to sell their products. So they needed to create as much doubt and as much confusion as possible so their product didn't get sort of essentially made illegal, or some of the ingredients in their product didn't get made illegal. So what does this mean for people like me who work as a professional and other people that work as professionals trying to share ideas like I share? Well, like I said, we're all trying to sell an idea, a product, or a service. What also happens is people have a certain bias in a direction. If you go to a doctor, they're going to have a bias to medication. If you go to a physiotherapist who enjoys movement-based therapies, they're going to suggest movement-based therapies. If you go to a chiropractor, they're going to suggest chiropractic. If you go to an osteopath, they're going to sort of use osteopathic remedies. You go to a massage therapist, they're going to use massage therapies. So first of all, you have to understand that. What then is important is, in some respects, educating yourself. And that then starts to bring in your own biases, and you start to see the difference in opinions and what do you choose and where do you go. Now, that can either go through your education, or you can learn through a certain professional. One, it could be me. So you'll go, right, this guy seems to know what he's talking about. I'm going to listen to everything he says. Or influencer B seems to know what they're talking about. I'm going to listen to everything that they've got to say. But that is a process of education. Now, who do you believe? Well, the thing to do, there's sort of two ways of doing it. One is the result that you get. Did it work? So did what the person was saying work for you? If it didn't, then it's probably not a useful thing to carry on doing what what is being done. So who do you choose? How do you choose a person to follow? Well, you can choose opposing views. Now, what do you do when you choose people with opposing views? What you have to look for is consistent information. So where are the consistencies between the opposing information? Because what you then start to find, so as an example, on this shelf here, I have 11 diet books. I have pH diet, I have paleo diet. What else have I got there? I've got the gut diet, I've got the diet myth, I've got the China study, I've got Mediterranean diet. So there are a variety of different diet books. Now, why did I buy all those different diet books? Because what I wanted to do is I wanted to find the consistency in what everyone was saying. So I wanted to go to one chapter, and it's the chapter where it's foods to eat and foods not to eat. And where do they all agree? They all agree at ultra-processed food. So that's one consistency through all the books. So I'm starting now to find a truth. This is not my truth. This is not influencer B's truth or influencer C's truth. Let's just call this a truth, because influencer A, B, C, and D all agree that ultra-processed food is not a useful thing to have. What you also tend to find is drinking water is another truth. They all tend to agree on drinking water. You can then go like further down the line of chemicals in the water, the purity of the water, should you have tap water, should you have bottled water, should you filter the water, all of that sort of stuff. That's a few steps on. But everyone tends to agree that water is a useful thing to have. So again, there's another truth. So what you start finding are these general truths throughout. Now, if we go to low back pain science, which is, I guess, where I have a lot of information, you go to this top shelf here. These are more sort of, let's just say, biomechanical types of books. So it's more appropriate for lower back pain. I've got specific lower back pain books. If I go, so that book there is low back disorder. I've got a few other books of McGill's. I've got his Gift of Injury. So that is low back pain in powerlifters. So a lot of people will complain to me about it's the exercise isn't hard enough because they're a big, strong person. This isn't going to do anything for elite athletes or stuff like that. Well, the Gift of Injury, which is in between the supple leopard and low back disorder, is low back pain for powerlifters. It's written by Dr. McGill and a powerlifter who has held world records, had back pain, sort of not been able to lift, and then come back to getting world records. So you can, again, with this book, this is the textbook of lower back pain. You've then got Back Mechanic, which is more at the general public. And then you've got the Gift of Injury, which is for powerlifters. So just in those three books, you've got a more broad perspective on what's going to be helpful for lower back pain. What I've then got, if you look down here, this green book just over my shoulder there, that is another lower back pain book. I've got another one, where is it? Oh, it's tucked, there's two of them, just tucked back in. You can see the cream one, where is it? It's there. That's another lower back pain book. And there's another one in between, another lower back pain book, not written by McGill. And then, yeah, that one down there. But that's more of a, oh no, it is a back pain. It's the lumbar spine and back pain. So those are three more books, not written by McGill. Again, looking for consistent information, looking for the information that he's saying and going, okay, well, let's go and look at that from other authors. And again, find consistent information. And if we then sort of go a little bit broader, you've got a book called Movement by Gray Cook and Athletic Body Imbalance by Gray Cook. This book here is then on a whole scope of injuries from the neck all the way down to the ankle and the toes and the foot. So what again you're looking for is the consistent information. What are different people saying about the same injury and where are the consistencies through it? What you then start to find are different threads of information. When you find those different threads of information, when you listen to an influencer on YouTube, what you're then able to do is you're then able to elicit what is useful information and what is not useful information, because you'll start to have these threads of consistent information about what all these different people are saying. What you can then do is then start building this in your head. And unfortunately, it does take time. It does take education. This isn't sort of universally prescribed. What generally happens, so if we go to, I've got two books up here. One is the Mackenzie method, and this is knees over toes guy. And what they're teaching a method. Now, what a method is a series of steps to take. It doesn't necessarily take into account the individual. All it does is says, do A, then do B, then do C, and then do D. And that's about it. When we come to lower back pain, again, what I've said in so many tutorials, videos, whatever it might be, for the right person, at the right time, in the right place, and in the right way, this method could be absolutely perfect for someone. But if you don't understand the person, the injury, where they are within that injury, then you won't know that that is the right thing. And it's the exact same thing with that. So what you have to understand first is where you are with the where you are with the injury. That's the first thing you have to understand. So if we have someone that has a flexion intolerant spine, their spine is irritated when it's flexed. Now, how do you know that? You have to go through some sort of assessment and questioning process to be able to understand that you have an flexion intolerant spine. Now, if you have that type of spine, it's probably not useful to then go and flex your spine in everyday life. Could be sat down, could be at work, could be in the car, could be going to the gym. You're probably going to have to use a different posture of the spine. Now, there's so much more that could go around that. There's so many more little influences that are sort of pulling. And as you go through a questioning and assessment process, you start to see that. Again, you start to see common threads in information, because you ask yourself a series of questions and you start to see very similar answers. And it's like, well, hang on a minute. If I keep seeing this similar answer, there's got to be some truth in it. What you can then start to do is then dig deeper into the information and get more nuance and get more context. Once you've done that, you then have a much better picture, and you will understand whether a approach like knees over toes guy or an approach like Mackenzie method is going to be useful for you. Because what they do in their marketing is they say, this is great for back pain. This will help solve your back pain. But what they're not telling you is who it's suitable for, what type of back pain it's suitable for. So we have to understand what type of back pain you have, because back pain is just an umbrella term. Is it sciatic type symptoms? Do you have disc bulge, disc herniations? Because that will influence the type of therapy. Is it disc degeneration? Is it facet joint arthrosis? Is it stenosis of the foramen, where the sciatic nerve or the nerves come out, not just the sciatic nerve? Because all of this is going to have an influence. So where you've got flexion intolerance, there may be other aspects that go with it which influence the direction that you have to go in. Again, there are no simple answers to this. Everyone wants there to be a simple answer. So when you hear the marketing, you hear simple answers. if you watch enough of my tutorials, what I hope people find is consistent information, or consistent threads of information. And I don't like with this, with regards, and I guess you could explain what marketing is. Marketing is about, certainly online, is about getting a click. So if you read a headline, it's for the click. What I hope to do is within the video is then help you understand lower back pain rather than try and justify the click or justify the headline. The headline to me is just for the click. That's all I want is the click. I want people to watch the information and learn. What a lot of people want and what a lot of people are also searching for is the answer, an answer. And then they can just go, oh, I found the answer, I do it. And then when it doesn't work, they get disappointed. So there's a lot of, there's ownership by the person watching and there's ownership by the person delivering the information. And so what I'm trying to do is help people understand and in some respects navigate, because if you've watched any of my Mackenzie method videos, I give caveats, I give context, I give nuance. A lot of people don't hear it or see it and then they write comments accordingly, complaining about how I don't know what I'm talking about and all this kind of stuff. But if you actually watch and listen, you'll see and understand that there are nuances to the information. I could go into the specifics, but it'll make no sense for this because I'm not talking in depth about it. So I try to, again, give that context, give that nuance, and give the justification as to why what I'm sharing is being shared. So there is that understanding that comes with it. Now, as I've mentioned, so I guess to start sort of summarizing and maybe wrapping this up, like I said, if you've got comments, if you want any more context on what I've said, and you want me to justify a little bit more on stuff I've said, stick it in the comments below. Please ask questions. Don't just complain, I disagree, you're wrong, this, that, and the other, because I'll question it. And what I generally find is when I question it, either people go to insults because they don't know how to answer the question, or they just ignore it and don't answer it because they don't know how to answer the question. I'm more than happy for people to question me because I try to put sometimes I don't always put the context in it. And if I miss something, I'll leave it in a comment and say, I missed that, I didn't add that. This is what it means. I have no problem with that at all. So to summarize, why is low back pain science confusing? Why does it seem like a minefield? Why are professionals contradicting each other? Essentially, it comes down to people are trying to sell an idea, a product, or a service. Why? Because they have a bias. So again, what I've tried to do is read as many different perspectives as possible and find common threads in it. Find out what's more useful for the general public that don't exercise, what's more useful for people that do exercise, and what's more useful for high-profile athletes. Because there are nuances across that field. And if the professional doesn't understand that, like I've done in the UK, we have the UK Strength and Conditioning Association. So if you want to work in a professional club, you go to university, you do a strength and conditioning degree or something very near equivalent. What you then have to do are these UK Strength and Conditioning Association workshops, which are weekend workshops that, again, sort of give you the vocational element to it. And then you're able to sort of progress through your strength and conditioning career. I've done those workshops. I haven't worked with professional clubs. I haven't done a degree in strength and conditioning, but I've done those workshops because they are open to the public. Well, not the public. I'm a trainer and sports massage therapist. That's why I've done them, but they're open to those people doing it. And what it does is it gives you the perspective of what is being taught and what needs to be taught in professional clubs to professional athletes. Now, what's important there is that the trainer doesn't go, well, that's what the athletes are doing. Well, therefore, the general public need that. Because no, that's what the athletes need. So you need to use the information in the context that it's taught. I guess this is kind of like another principle. You need to use the information in the context that it's taught. So when you're reading science, who is the science for? Is it done on athletes? Is it done on everyday people? Is it done on fitness enthusiasts? Because you have to use the information for those people. Because if it's saying that it's brilliant for athletes, then don't then take that out of context and say that information is brilliant for the general public. Because in the science, in the journal or in the article, it was done on professional athletes. So the conclusion will say this information is really good for that population because that's what the study showed. But what happens is influencers or professionals go, well, the conclusion said that. So they take it out of the context that it was put in and then say, general public, you should be doing X, Y, and Z because this paper said so. But when you look at the paper, what you understand is that, well, hang on a minute, you're telling the general public to do this, but this study was done on professional athletes. So that doesn't make sense. So the information's being taken out of the context that it was done in. Science is a very specific sort of mode of information. So when you have an influencer, if that's a thing, someone talking online who claims to be someone, I don't really know, you have to use that information in the context that it's given in. Again, I would never call myself an influencer. I am a personal trainer. I'm a sports massage therapist. A lot of people mistake me for a physical therapist or a physiotherapist. Again, if you go on my website, I am very clear. I am a personal trainer. I am a sports massage therapist. I have expertise and knowledge in lower back pain, in core strength, in posture. I have done the UKSCA workshops, so I have understanding of what's being taught to professional athletes and so on and so forth. Again, I have textbooks on that. I am a member of the UKSCA, an associate member, which allows me to go onto their website to read their journal. I have a bunch of their journals down on the shelf, bottom shelf here. So again, I've got perspective of athletes. I've got perspective of everyday people. That's who I work with day in, day out, everyday people and fitness enthusiasts. So again, I have expertise and experience there. I've had low back pain myself from the age of 14 to, I would say, 30. But that was a progressive, it kind of peaked at about my late teens, 18 to 20. And then I guess as the growing started to slow down, so that had an effect on it. But basically once I became a fitness professional or personal trainer, that's when I was able to really start, because I got that book in 2009. When I was 25, 26, whatever age I was. And I was then able to apply what was being said. And therefore, by the time I was 30, it was gone. And I don't really have back pain anymore. So again, I have expertise. Part of the reason this conversation came up was, again, the same person commenting, and I'm not saying that he shouldn't have said it because it's absolutely fine. It's that I didn't have experience in warehouses and construction. I do have experience of working in a warehouse. I did in my teens in construction, not necessarily on a building site per se, building apartment blocks or houses or anything, but I worked in landscaping. I built essentially, you could call them water features, but basically ponds, and not just your little decorative pond. I mean, I don't know, 50-meter ponds where you dig out a whole fucking great big load of soil and basically put all the liner in. You get the massive rocks, I mean, sort of, I don't know, 4 foot wide, sort of couple of foot deep type rocks that go all around the outside. So I've experienced, and you know, when the rubber liners come, they're about 6 foot high, and you've got to unroll them and cover the whole of the pond. So I have sort of understanding of construction, not necessarily sort of specialised brickwork experience, but I've done, you know, hardcore landscaping, not the sort of soft. I have done the soft scaping, planting this, that, and the other, but I also have experience in diggers and shoveling tons and tons of land or soil to put in, and that's kind of where this originated. So I was summarising, but I've gone off on another thread. So let's summarise in some bullet points. Why is it confusing? Because people have something to sell, a product, a service, or an idea. Why is it always different? Because these people selling have a bias and they want to make themselves unique. So they have to say, this is better, that's worse, and that's where all that comes from. What do I try and do? I try and read a broad spectrum of information. Hence, McKenzie method is very different to knees over toes guy, which is very different to Dr. McGill's work on lower back pain. I try to find the common threads. I try to understand the limitations of all of them. I've got videos online saying limitations to the McGill method. I've got limitations to this, to knees over toes guy. I've got limitations to McKenzie method. Again, I try not to be too biased in McGill's direction because I understand that there are limitations to it. But with that said, I have found that this is the most consistent and probably best information, although there are still limitations to it. And until I find better information, I will keep promoting that type of information the most. I do have slight extensions of it and my own way of doing it, because I do think working with everyday people every day, I do believe there are limitations to the McGill method and how it's and that's not necessarily his fault, because he has to write a book. You can't cover everything everywhere. So yeah, I could go on and give more examples, but I just wanted to put that down about why information is so confusing, because it's not when you understand what you're looking for. Because it's very easy then to, when you come across an influencer, it's very easy to go, that's not good information. That's only good for this person at this time. This information is completely wrong. This information is right, but they're slightly not quite there yet. You can see all of that stuff. And I'm constantly, when I talk to people, I work with people every day, 6 days a week, I work with people. And I get questions all the time. Is this good? Does this do this? Does that do that? I had another question about strength, bone density. So there's a form of training called bar fitness. Now, bar fitness is like it's a fitness of like ballet. So the bar, you sort of stand along a wall, hold onto your bar, you lift up your legs, you do these very fine movements, you lift up light weights. Now, I was asked, is that good for bone mineral density? And again, it depends. It depends on the individual. It depends where they are in their bone mineral density journey. If they are osteoporotic and they need to start doing something, then it's probably going to help initially. But if they are of a good general sort of fitness, but they are a female of a certain age that is worried about bone mineral density as they get older, but they're of a good fitness now, then it's probably not going to do anything for them. So they need to then do a different type of training, slightly heavier training. So again, it's not that the information's wrong, it's that the person who's done the marketing of it has probably said, this is good for bone mineral density because I've read it somewhere. Whereas when you take the individual, if they are osteoporotic, then maybe it might be. But if they are of a general fitness and they're at this journey or at this stage of their bone mineral density journey, then it's probably going to be a pointless thing to do and do nothing for their bone mineral density. What they need to do is heavy deadlifts. So you have to understand all these different nuances. And unfortunately, there is no other answer than that. So yeah, why is it confusing? Because everyone's trying to sell a product, a service, or idea, unfortunately. And they're trying to be unique and they're building on their biases. So I've said that probably 4 or 5 times now. So yeah, if you take nothing away from it, then please take that away from it. Leave any comments and questions below. If you want to hear more content like this, again, stick it below. I've got loads of information on this. It's not around sort of helping people directly with exercises and stretches and so on and so forth with their lower back pain. But it's the same with science. It's the same in nutrition. And yeah, it's the same everywhere. Everyone's trying to sell something. So yes, many thanks for watching. I will stop talking now. It's been long enough. I've repeated myself enough. So yes, many thanks for watching. My name is Chris from Chris Pole Training. I'll speak to you in the next episode.